Hello, Internet, and welcome once again to the Free-to-Play cast. Woohoo! This time it is episode 226, brought to you by MMO Bomb, your home for all things free-to-play related. I am your host, Mike Byrne, aka Magicman. We've got news, we've got some trash talking that I didn't see coming that we'll get to. But as you can hear on the line, let's introduce the other one, my favorite one first. Jason Winter, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. A podcast? Do we still do these? I haven't been on one for like a month.
Yeah, you've had a couple weeks off. You had a couple weeks off. Troy gets off next week. But that's fine.
I don't want to hear about that. That's his own personal business.
He may not even be back after that. Troy Blackburn, Noobfridge, what's up?
The truth stings, doesn't it, Mr. Byrne?
It burns.
It burns.
Mm.
You guys are a hot mess. A hot mess. But we've got some news to cover before we get there, so let's start with the news.
At least we're hot.
At least. Do I even have the right lower third? All my assets were screwed up here. Yep, all right, good. All right, so Troy, we're going to depend on you for a little bit of help here because we know you're a Marvel Heroes guy. And whether you call it Marvel Heroes 2015, 2016, Marvel Heroes Omega, every year the title changes. We're talking about the massively multiplayer ARPG by Gazillion Entertainment, where you take your heroes in. And we've talked about the game in the past before, particularly when it launched on consoles, which you on the show said was relatively good news, even though it might have brought some game features that PC players would lament. And we've talked about maybe some changes in cash shop design, some changes in loot boxes, and how heroes are obtained. We've covered it fairly extensively over the years, but we depend on the news to do that, right? Like, Gazillion has to let us know, or we have to see on their forums some news, and Jason will see it and say, hey, do you want me to cover this? And he writes it up. But what happens when the news, which is put out there, then becomes more newsworthy because all of a sudden it was gone? Little weird. So here, hopefully, Troy, you can help us a little bit with this, because what it looked like on the surface this week was Marvel Heroes was getting a patch, a typical patch. Patch notes came out with all the stuff in it, and a post on the forum with the patch notes went up, and a post on the forum specific to the issue we're talking about went up. And the general issue, Jason, was pretty understandable, right? When you dug into it a little bit, is there were certain characters, specifically ones related to Fantastic Four, that those characters and those skins and those products that you may be able to buy from the cash shop now were no longer going to be available due to a licensing issue, presumably between Gazillion and Fox, and what Fox wants to do with the whole Fantastic Four license. And these things are pretty typical, and in fact, happen often for games that seriously rely on an IP like this. I don't think anything out of the ordinary, while sad, was actually happening here so far. Right, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get into the reasoning, like people actually believed why this was being done, or we're going to get into the whole after the whole thing was announced sort of thing.
Well, we can talk about the reason first.
Because the reason that a lot of people actually think is because Marvel is trying to make those characters less attractive so they can get the rights back to them and maybe insert them into their whole cinematic universe. So it's kind of a three-way tug of war between those two companies holding the rights, and Gazillion being, a licensee, or I always get those confused. So yeah, it's kind of an unfortunate situation for them, but they're kind of stuck maybe in that sort of corporate tug of war between those two companies.
Between Marvel and Fox, to be...
Yeah, trying to fight for the ability to use those characters.
Yeah, and that's one thing we should clarify right off the top of the bat, because I've seen it out there a lot, exactly what Mike said. Fox pulled these characters from Gazillion.
No,
that's not actually the case. Fox doesn't own any rights of the Fantastic Four outside of movie rights. Marvel still has rights for everything else, comics, games, and all that. Right. So this is absolutely Marvel making a power move here, and what it seems like, speculation so far, is a power move to try to, just like they've canceled the comic series, they're trying to devalue that franchise for Fox, which is weird because they seem to get along okay with the X-Men. So the Fantastic Four is like a target here, but this is most definitely a move by Marvel.
Right, and to be clear, I started this story knowing where this was going. I wasn't misrepresenting it. I was giving the kind of flow of events as players may have seen them go through. Yes, it seems to be an issue between Marvel and Fox that Gazillion is just unfortunately caught in the middle, not the misrepresentation that was I've even seen on some other sites that this was between Gazillion and Fox. It was not.
Don't worry, this isn't the worst critique Troy will have of Mike in the show.
Right.
This isn't the worst critique I've had of Mike this week.
All right, moving on. It's going to be that kind of cast. Moving on. So that was all well and good, and something Gazillion certainly, obviously, has to communicate to its player base. And initially, it seemed to do so the way you would have expected. One, the patch notes reflected some of these updates with cash shop changes, hero acquisition changes, and then a forum post that went into a little more detail, even if it was still a little bit unclear, like Troy just pointed out, between the parties what exactly was going on. It communicated the overall idea that these certain things and a whole list of products weren't going to be available come a certain date, but if you had purchased them before that date, don't worry, you'll still be able to use them, which is, again, pretty standard for this type of stuff. You bought it when we had the license, so we're not going to take it away from you. We just can't sell it anymore. And we see the same thing with T-shirts, right? Jason's doesn't have to return a T-shirt because somebody doesn't have the rights to it anymore. There we go, Wolfenstein. But here's where it got odd. Troy, from what I understand, this was also announced on the launcher for the game as part of their little, you know, what most games do, the news snippets on the launcher while the game is booting up. I have not seen that personally because it was just too ridiculous a download for me to go look at a launcher. Yeah. You have the game, though. Was it there? Is it there? What's the status on that?
It was not there this morning. Now, that being said, there was an update yesterday, a patch that took off the anniversary event and started the Spider-Man Homecoming event for the upcoming movie. So I can't verify whether in fact it was or was not there. I don't doubt, honestly, that it was. That seems like a big thing that if they thought they were going to make a forum post about it. Yeah, this needs to be on the launcher too. Like, because one of the controversies, you know, we'll get into the other controversy here in a minute, but one of the controversies when the post first went up is how short notice it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I kind of have a little compassion for them because they were probably trying to wait as long as possible to see if these negotiations could pan out before saying, all right, we got to discontinue them. So I don't fault them for short notice. It sucks, but I get where they may have been going, Jason, where we don't want to say this and then have it end up working out at the last minute. So let's try something. But here's where it gets weird. I don't have any reason to doubt, and I don't think either of you do, that it was on the launcher at some point. There's just too many forum posts where players are referencing that they saw the news on the launcher. What gets really weird, though, is that not even 24 hours after the patch notes and the forum posts go up, they get pulled down. They're gone. You can't find them. If you check out our article on mmobomb.com, we provide a link to the actual images of a cached version of the forum post, so you can see it did exist at one point. But then it also seems that, and I understand that if a bunch of people tee off in 900 different forum posts, moderators are going to close 899 of them, Jason, and say, go talk about it in the one. But it seems like the Marvel Heroes community is almost being told, shut up about this, and has no frame of reference on, is this still happening? When is it happening? Are we still going to have our heroes if we bought them before then? There's like no status check as of the time we wrote the article yesterday, Jason.
Yeah, it was scheduled to go in effect on July 1st. That's what the original forum post said. But if you're going to do that, and you know, as I say, once it's on the internet, it's there forever. So it's known that that's a thing, that that's something they're talking about, that's something that's been discussed. If you're then going to pull it off, you can't just say it never happened. People are now going to wonder about that. And at the very least, they should come up with some sort of... They've even done a statement that just says, hey, this is a thing that happened. We're still discussing it, or whatever. And maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe, like you said, maybe the negotiations are still ongoing. Maybe they'll still be able to do something that will get it going for perpetuity, or at least have another month or so. Has there been anything that just says, we're still talking about this. Hang on.
Right. And that, to date, as far as I know, no. But that's why I enlisted ace investigative reporter and Marvel Heroes aficionado, Troy, a.k.a. Noobfridge Blackburn. Where is the community on this right now? All this happened over the course of about 24 hours. Where the hell does this stand now? Has there been any update on even just... Hold, guys. We weren't quite ready to announce that. It was a mistake. We don't know exactly what's going on. Dates. Hold, for future updates. Where the hell are the Marvel Heroes players being directed to right now? Because I find it funny that typically, and this is just from my own forum moderation experience, if 10 posts are open about something, Troy, and I want to direct people to one place to talk about it, and I close 9 of those threads, I usually put the link in my post of, I'm closing this, it's already being discussed here, go here. I'm not seeing that. I'm just seeing there are multiple posts about this, I'm closing this one, go talk about it in one of the other posts, but no link saying, hey, this is where we're confining that discussion. So I can't even find, like, Gazillion's stance on this stuff right now.
Oh, well, I can tell you exactly why that is, because as of right now, Gazillion has 0 stance on this. I've spent the entire morning this morning shooting messages, emails, looking through feeds, trying to figure out what's going on, expecting responses from, even if not directly through Gazillion contacts, through somebody who I know who personally knows Gazillion contacts. And there's nothing. They have not said, sorry, that was a mistake. That's not happening. They have not said, hang on, we can't talk about this right now. They haven't even flat out said, hang on, we can't talk about this at all, ever. They have said 0, nothing, nada. Gazillion's pretty notorious for a little bit of heavy-handed moderation on the forums, but there are threads up discussing the Fantastic Four. That's not the last time I'm going to say that now. The Fantastic Four debacle that's going on right now. And some of them even have dev responses in them pertaining to odd, like, customer service questions, but nothing whatsoever referencing that this post ever existed. Then not even saying, hey, we can't talk about this. We're sorry, we messed up. Nothing. There's nothing on individual developer Twitters and Gazillion's bad about this too. Like, you'll have to go find information on some random Twitter that belongs to some dev who's not even in charge of the thing that he's talking about, but he happened to mention it, so that's where you got the information from. There's not even any of that. It's weird.
It's like, Jason, it's like a self-inflicted wound that is absolutely needless, right? Like, of course, you're going to have the couple of fanboys and girls that Gazillion's going to get their ire for losing these heroes, all right? Yes, that's going to be a small subset of the angry portion of the internet. But the more logical among the people out there would go, hey, at the end of the day, Gazillion really doesn't have a say in this. It's kind of like Turbine and Lord of the Rings. At the end of the day, if they can't, or the company that's giving them the license for X fees doesn't want to renew that license for whatever reason, there's nothing Turbine can do to make them do it. So Gazillion was kind of free and clear here as far as blame, but now they've inflicted this weird PR situation on themselves, and I'm not even sure why.
And this is even a better situation for them than the Turbine thing you're talking about, because if you know, the Lord of the
Rings Turbine thing shuts down your entire game.
But the point is though that why would they do that? Well, it's because they're upset with Turbine. Turbine isn't making enough money or whatever. They don't like the direction of the game, whatever, so on. This has nothing to do with Gazillion.
Yeah.
This is between Fox and Marvel. Marvel maybe loves Gazillion and loves everything they do, but this is just a thing between these other two companies. It's not like Gazillion has done anything wrong in terms of the game or how they've represented the characters or anything. And there probably are. There's probably some legal something or other that means they just can't talk about it. But again, you'd think that you could at least put out a statement that says, we can't talk about it. Put out that statement at least. Say, yeah, we acknowledge this happened.
Yeah.
We can't talk about it.
Something. The forum post yesterday regarding this was issued in error. We're no longer talking about this publicly. When we have an update, we'll give you one. Who the hell is calling?
Always a call. Every podcast, somebody has to call you.
Always.
While he's distracted, I will talk about one of the things I did uncover during my investigation this morning. Although the post has gone away and they're not talking about it, it looks like the plans are still in motion for the Fantastic Four to disappear on July 1st. We're already seeing issues like the update from yesterday. The Future Foundation cards, which are like loot crates and other games, you buy them, open them, RNG, whether you get something good. Those are gone. Those are gone from the shop completely. Folks today who had heard, hey, you better get your Fantastic Four costumes and heroes and anything that you don't have yet now, because you're not going to be able to buy them at all in the future. Like, people are gifting each other costumes, Fantastic Four heroes. When they gift each other the heroes that they don't have, instead of getting that hero, they're getting ultimate upgrade tokens, which is the thing you get when you already have the hero and you get like a random hero box or something. So somewhere in the code, these guys are already gone.
Which means you have to say something at that point.
Yeah.
You have to. I mean, we're totally speculating on the whole Marvel versus Fox thing. You can look at it and say, well, maybe it's a bit of a power play. Fox kind of screwed this up. Marvel wants it back, blah, 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 blah. That's total speculation, and we can have fun with that. At the end of the day, we're never really going to know the true story besides the end result, whatever happens between Marvel and Fox and the negotiations that go on there. But with the Gazillion, these are facts we need right now, because people were trying to flood the system with money to pick up something that your post said they could still pick up, and now you can't, with no explanation of what is going on. It's so bizarre. I'm trying, Jason, in the 7, 8, 9 years that you and I have been doing the online MMO stuff, in the X number of years that you've been covering it even longer for magazines, before you were doing podcasts and videocasts and such. I've seen PR snafus, but nothing quite like this, where the snafu isn't even acknowledged. Like, it's just not even acknowledged after it happens.
Now you got me trying to think of if I've seen worse ones.
I've certainly seen worse. Like self-inflicted wounds that you try and fix, and then you fix them in totally the wrong way. We talked about one just a few months ago. But I can't really think of one where we made a mistake, and now we're not even talking about the mistake. But it's implemented. Wait, what?
Yeah, that's a whole new level of whatever.
So bizarre. So Troy, I guess we'll sit and wait for an update from you. Obviously, we've reached out to Gazillion. I know you independently as a player and a member of the streaming community have some contacts you've reached out to. None of us are being told anything. We're not even getting I'll be honest, I haven't even gotten a reply to an email that says this is something we can't talk about right now. Stay tuned for updates. I haven't even gotten that much from any of the typical PR contacts that I would reach out to privately or through my MMO bomb contacts. It's just mum's the word right now. It's very bizarre.
And there's one more big question that players are going to have going forward too, because initially when that post got made, they didn't say this, and I admit that going back and reading it again, but initially I took it as, oh, hey, they've also renewed the PC license for the IP. Because we knew that the console license was separate, and somewhere along the way in the past, they had actually lost it and had to renegotiate it to be able to create the game for the console launch that is currently taking place on the 30th, which is tomorrow for us, today, probably if you're watching this on Friday. So that it initially came across as, hey, we couldn't introduce Fantastic Four on the consoles because that was a new contract. And now here it is, we're having to sort of, but not, we're not going to take them away from you, but we're not going to sell them anymore on PC. It came across as, hey, we've also now renewed the license for PC. Now, with the fact that it's coming down and they're saying nothing, it's almost coming more across as, and this is just speculation, this is not me saying this is fact, that was part of the negotiation just to get the console license back, was they had to make some reparations over here on the PC side, and we're still in the same license renewal over there. So it's just, there's so many weird questions that they did not answer in the initial post, and now aren't even coming back to clarify, because now we're pretending like this post never existed.
Yeah,
and apparently we're going to pretend like the Fantastic Four never existed in this game starting in a day or two.
Just a retcon, just typical comics retcon. They never existed. Time travel, something, whatever.
And it is weird on that front, Troy, that like even if you go to their website, it is very, very console-centric. If you go to their website, it's on the PS4, the Xbox One, and granted, those are newer announcements, so they take up a lot of real estate now. But just to even like play it on PC, there is no like big play now button or anything like that. It's just at the top of the screen in small font, PC download. It seems very console-centric on its own website. So we'll keep our ears posted. Obviously, there are a lot of you MMO bombers out there. Some of you may be more involved in Marvel Heroes than others. Feel free to email us if you get some information. contact@mmobomb.com. We'll certainly run with it and see what we can dig up. So that pissed Troy off. Let's move to what pissed Jason off this week. So typically, and this is a topic we revisit every year or so, maybe a little more often, a little less often, depending on what's going on in the free-to-play world. I remember we talked about it in general maybe about 6 or 7 months ago when we were seeing kind of a steady stream of things that we thought were going to be free-to-play releasing buy-to-play, things like Black Desert Online and titles like that. And so we kind of bring up the discussion of where is free-to-play headed as a business model? Is it dying? Is it stagnant? Is it growing? Whatever. And generally we come to the same consensus that it's not as strong as it once was a few years ago. A few years before that, it was ridiculous to even talk about in the West, a free-to-play title. And I think we all kind of agree that right now it's in this, there doesn't seem to be a ton of growth. There does seem to be the odd, the high amount of shovelware into free-to-play that's historically always been there. We're seeing a few surprising titles go buy-to-play, but for the most part, it's still a strong model that developers are definitely considering and should based on whatever genre they're going into. Do any of us disagree with that basic? It's on a bit of a downward right now, but not catastrophically. It's going to be gone in a year type downward.
You can't drop it from the conversation yet, definitely.
Right. So if you're making a game, it's in the conversation. Jason, you found an article that says the exact opposite. If you're making a game, it should not even be considered. Yeah. What was this all? And you were not extremely thrilled here. So first, let's go through where the article came from and the overall premise, and then we'll get our individual opinions on the conclusions of that article.
So yeah, it was posted on Gamasutra, which is a site I think we've all followed for many years.
Generally not a gamer website per se.
Yeah,
it definitely caters,
developers, publishers, that sort of thing. Yeah, giving advice or talking about stories that they had from when they developed their games and whatnot. It's more of an industry thing. And
it's a gamer website if you're heavily involved. It's not, your average gamer going to MMO Bomb is probably not going to a site like Gamasutra for daily news or anything.
Mm-hmm. But they do put out, some decent commentary and a lot of stuff that, about 99% of it I think is good advice, generally decent, well written and so forth. And yeah, then this thing yesterday or the day before, whenever it was, the guy said basically, like I said, he says that, what was it? The exact quote is, free-to-play should be entirely considered out of the question in 2017. So he goes on for quite a while about how it's not great. He gets into a few things of how it can turn off more people than it can bring to it, which I think is something that I can't see any numbers that agree with that. Yeah, we all have our own opinions. We've all seen the Reddit thread and so on. Some game will be announced as free-to-play, and some people are going to go, oh, it's free-to-play, I'll forget it then completely. Yeah, okay. A lot of people do that, especially the core gamers. Ones who have been around for a while are used to spending $30-40 on a game, don't mind that so much. But it's clear, though, from any numbers we've seen, that free-to-play gets more people into your game. Maybe they don't stick around. Maybe they hate them. Maybe they go on and on about how awful the microtransactions are. But they keep playing the damn thing for some reason or another. So
what's weird here, and this was written by Bobby Bernstein. Bobby Bernstein. I apologize, whichever pronunciation Bobby uses. We'll go with that one. I don't happen to know the gentleman, so I don't know which side. But there's a couple of key points here that particular quotes that I want to bring up. That you wrote a kind of what is that called? An op-ed retort,
like a rebuttal.
Yeah, a little rebuttal piece on mmobomb.com. And so I want to start here first because this is where Bobby acknowledges his own personal gaming opinion. There are many gamers, including myself, this is Bobby's quote, not mine, who will perhaps unfairly write off a game and not even play it just because it has the words free to play in the marketing materials. And I think, Jason, you just acknowledged that, yeah, there is a small audience of people that's absolutely going to be the case. They just absolutely don't like free to play. They don't like it as a model. And if they're excited about a game, free to play may totally turn them off. I don't think any of us disagree with that. And I think even Bobby points out, Troy, perhaps unfairly. You know, that they are judging the game based on its model. So I don't think any of us have any problem with this idea so far, right?
Not so far. I mean, there's plenty of counter arguments for everything in there. We'll get to those in a few minutes, but yeah, I mean, there's some.
Yeah, he's not saying the majority of them or anything. He's just saying, hey, there are gamers that free-to-play turns off, and I don't think any of us disagree.
He's not completely coming out of left field at this point, no.
Right. Yeah. Where it starts to get a little left field for me is this quote. There's a significant stigma associated with the free-to-play model that, and I don't disagree with him so far, it does have a stigma. Whether it's well-deserved or not on a particular title doesn't matter, that in 2017 will more than likely keep more players from checking their game out at all. And I think that's where this goes off the rails for me, Jason. I don't think that is borne out in any number that you are going to find anywhere, to the point that Funcom is banking on the fact right now that this is not true.
Yeah, this is where I think his personal biases start to really come into play here. That he acknowledges that he doesn't so much go into free-to-play games, like you said, perhaps unfairly, and with some reason, and so do a lot of other people. We see that sort of thing, you know, over and over on the internet. But to try to extrapolate that into basically a numbers-based argument saying that free-to-play pushes away more people than it brings in, that's where I would just love to see any evidence for that beyond, hey, there's a bunch of people on Reddit who don't like it or whatever.
Yeah,
and I think that's there. Especially when you look at success stories like Dungeons and Dragons Online or Star Wars: The Old Republic or anything like that, or possibly Secret World, like you mentioned, or Battleborn, other recent games that have gone free to play.
Yeah, and here's the weird thing. Like, again, none of us know Bobby personally. I actually thought it was a well-written article, at least.
Yeah.
I'm not casting any aspersions on Bobby or Bobby's opinions here. This is just simply a matter of you say A and I disagree and I say B. So we are not lambasting this guy or his article or any. It's just we have a very big difference of opinion to the point where I'm unsure where some of the thoughts are coming from, because we have never once, not in the history of games, have seen a free-to-play conversion that did not result, at least initially, in a huge influx of players, Troy. It's just not what happens.
No, it's not at all. I mean, even WildStar had a huge spike in that quarter that they initially went free-to-play. I mean, yeah, it dropped the bottom drop back out of it, but even that game, everybody thought, you know, they were shocked it made it through 2016. Now we're all waiting to see does it make it through 2017. Even that one, you know, like you said, it saw a surge at least at the beginning, and there are so many great success stories of games switching over to free to play. It's just hard to fathom that, and to me, and this just seems like a bit of confusion in sort of terminology here, and using the term free-to-play in place of some of the monetization issues like loot crates and that stuff. And here's the problem with that. Those things exist just as much these days in buy-to-play games as they do in free-to-play games. I
don't think I disagree with the assertions he makes as much, Jason, if they were presented in more of a... Instead of an absolute, which is kind of the way Bobby words it in his piece, if it was more of a, in the long term, free-to-play is not going to yield the high number of players that you would at one point thought. If it would have been expressed more in terms of the longevity of a game rather than it's just a model you shouldn't consider right now. I think in some genres, if you are thinking of releasing a card game right now, for instance, and you aren't having free-to-play at the top of your list as potential business models, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. You are making a stark barrier of entry compared to 99% of your competition. The same is relatively true in the MOBA game space, which, Troy, you have infinitely more familiarity with on the MOBA front of things. I'm not saying you can't release a MOBA in a buy-to-play space. Awesome Knots did it initially and went that way for quite a long time compared to what I thought they would end up having to do. But eventually, push came to shove, and they had to go to free-to-play. There are certain genres that, if you're not considering it, you're hamstringing yourself off the bat. Here's a perfect example of one that I think is making the wrong decision right now, Jason. Let me know if you agree. Lawbreakers. I think Lawbreakers is making the absolute wrong decision in launching in a buy-to-play space with that particular game, an unknown IP, and hoping that Cliff Bleszinski's aura or his resume speaks highly enough, like Blizzard's resume spoke, to get away with that with Overwatch. I think it's the wrong decision for Lawbreakers.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly going with kind of the Overwatch. He's looking at Overwatch and going that way with it, thinking that because they succeeded as a pay game, so can this. And I think Quake Champions is kind of doing the same thing too, although it's got that almost kind of free to play
right.
one character or whatever. I don't know. I think for both of those games, I think they have their reasons for going free to. If I had to pick which one was going to go full free to play first, I'd probably say it would be Lawbreakers. I think Quake Champions has that kind of older mentality. All the the people who played Quake 20, 25 years ago or whatever, they're probably more accustomed to that. But I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about Lawbreakers in that sense. But I do agree. In general, Bobby has the right idea of free to play isn't what it used to be. Should be something you don't necessarily consider as automatic, like I think a lot of people did maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago when that was the only thing you could do practically. And then along came games like Overwatch and Final Fantasy 14, games that launched as buy to play in a very free to play realm and have done pretty well. So a lot of other companies are seeing that and thinking they can do the same, like Lawbreakers, for instance.
Yeah, it's not the instant ATM that it used to be considered. And I would have agreed if that's what he would have said. Hey, free to play has evolved to the point that it may not be the default position for certain games releasing today, but to say it flat out should not even be considered, I think that's where Bobby kind of loses me. He also loses me, Troy, a little bit when he says, hey, games should be $40 instead of $60. Well, hell, I mean, none of us are going to disagree with that. But, okay, fine. And then he kind of rails against microtransactions in paid games, but then kind of boosts Overwatch and Final Fantasy XIV as this ideal model, both of which have microtransactions in them. It just, that argument seemed a little counterintuitive, such a strong, passionate dislike towards microtransactions, and then saying, here's some games that do it right, all of which have a box fee, a subscription in Final Fantasy's case, and a cash shop for microtransactions.
And Overwatch, the game that is overwhelmingly responsible for all these loot boxes that are coming to all these games, including games that have been out for 6 or 7 years. Like single-player games are getting loot boxes now. It's just like, this is the game that's responsible for all of this. But yeah, to set that up on like a pedestal up in itself. And here's the other thing: when are we going to quit saying that games like companies, especially like Blizzard, why are we comparing everything to Blizzard? Blizzard is not the standard of this genre. Blizzard is an exception. World of Warcraft was not the standard that everybody tried to say it was in the MMO genre for years. It was the exception. It was the monster that was so far above everybody else, but everybody kept trying to say, like, we need to be like World of Warcraft. We need to do this. And everybody does it with other Blizzard games too, like Overwatch. You see what happened with Battleborn when they tried to launch a battle-play shooter like that. Fell flat on their faces. Now they're going free-to-play. Paladins has succeeded in that little niche because they came out completely as free-to-play because they realized, hey, we're not Blizzard. We can't get away with that.
Yeah, and I think I've said it on this show before, Jason, when it comes to Blizzard in particular. Not anymore. There was a time when I think Blizzard was an incredibly innovative company. I don't necessarily believe that anymore, that they're a huge innovator. But I do believe that their bread and butter and what they are extremely good at is taking things that are popular and either building new games off of them or implementing them into their products in a way that is more seamless and more user-friendly than the original idea. I think that's what they excel at, and why they get a huge audience and a big pat on the back. I mean, they made Overwatch, I think, is extremely accessible. Features in MMOs that were never in World of Warcraft, that were Guild Wars 2. We saw when Guild Wars 2 came out, like every 3 months, Blizzard was adding something to World of Warcraft that was in Guild Wars 2. We saw it, and it's happened before with other games. They just implement it arguably better. But it wasn't their idea, so yeah, I kind of agree with you there, Troy. I think at the end of the day, I would not have had the problems with Bobby's point of view if he would have been more along the lines of the way I always say it, and Jason, you're sick of me hearing, I get it. I agree that there are players that play free-to-play games and don't play free-to-play games that just hate the free-to-play model. But I believe we all want our games to be free-to-play until we find the one we like, and then we wish it had a sub. that's really been my point of view for years. Mm-hmm. Jason, you had such a distaste for this. I'm going to give you the final word before we close it out.
Like I said at the top of the article, just absolutist thinking is just lousy. Don't do it, kids.
Bobby, if I don't know if Bobby will watch this, but Bobby, we'd love to hear your take on this. And hell, if you want to come and be on the panel and we could debate it out on a show, we'd love to have you. Just reach out. Let us know. Before we finish up today, and this will segue into the bombs. We put a first look video up this week, and I'm assuming
please invite me back.
I'm assuming the person who did the first look video assumed that I'm the type of editor-in-chief that does not read or watch the content before he publishes it.
No,
that's the only thing I can come up with here on why this particular thing happened. But first, it was for Hyper Universe, Nexon's foray into the side-scroller MOBA. Before we get into the fiasco that I believe is personally attacking. Troy, I want to give you a few minutes to talk about the game in general. If you're a fan of Awesomenauts, this is kind of in that same vein, that side-scrolling, up-and-down gameplay MOBA. What were your overall thoughts and impressions of it as it moves from beta to open beta and eventually launch here?
I'll be perfectly honest with you, and I said this flat out in the first look video. I was surprised. The game was a pleasant surprise. I was expecting nothing, which maybe helped to be such a great surprise. I honestly thought, well, hey, maybe here's my first chance to just talk smack on a game for a whole video and just have some fun with it. 15, 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh crap, I'm having fun. What do I do now? This is not what I expected. I actually enjoy it more than Awesomenauts. Free-to-play, side-scrolling MOBA, a different graphical presentation. I love the character models. There's only one map in the beta right now, but it looks decent enough. But the characters stand out from the background to me. It's easier to tell what's going on. It's not as hard to lose like brightly colored characters and brightly colored backgrounds surrounded by brightly colored particles like it is in Awesomenauts for me anyway. That's personal opinion, obviously. But I enjoyed the game quite a bit. It seems to have the pretty standard MOBA free-to-play model that you're going to expect. Shouldn't be anything outrageous there. We didn't get to see like real cash prices to unlock heroes because all that wasn't implemented yet. But yeah, it surprised me, and it is still right now installed on my computer with intent to play this weekend.
Yeah, currently in closed beta. So if you're watching the first look, there's a couple placeholders and things like that. But it gives you the idea of what's going to happen there, of what's going to be in the game.
It gives you a good idea of what PvP looks like too.
Yeah, one of the things that I do enjoy in the game, at least from my standpoint, is some of the fun riffs that they take on pop culture things. Like if you look at the Korean version, which is obviously further along because it's been released for a while, like the knockoff Power Ranger character. So there's some fun aspects.
There's a little superhero chick in there too. She's really awesome.
They have some fun with that. I preferred Awesomenauts at the end of the day, and I think only because it was faster. I kind of agree with you on Awesomenauts actually. It's easy to lose characters on screen because everything's the same bright colored mess. When 3 or 4 characters and a bunch of creeps and everything get together, it's a little easy to lose. But I think I like the speed of Awesomenauts over Hyper Universe, which is really odd to me because I like the slower speed of Paragon when compared to something like Smite. So I'm all over the place when it comes to MOBAs. Jason, your thoughts on Hyper Universe? I know you weren't a huge Awesomenauts fan, so this probably doesn't hit the mark for you either, but your thoughts on the first look?
Well, I actually had a chance to play it a little bit at PAX South, and kind of glad that's all I've played of it at this point.
We'll just leave it at that. So
the
Troy,
arrow keys to move, that just bugged the hell out of me. I can never get used to that.
Now that way, and we talked about that during the first look video. That is very weird and very awkward. But something that I adapted to quicker than I thought I would, and I'm looking forward to controller integration because it is coming. It's just really buggy right now.
Yeah, it's already underway.
So,
closed beta. So Troy, you end up giving this one a thumbs up, I take it.
I did, walking into it fully expecting to at the end to have some fun with a thumbs down, but I didn't. So my personal biases, I was able to set those aside and go, I'm having fun. So yeah, it's worth trying if you can get into the closed beta right now.
I'm going to give it a thumbs up for a lot of the same reasons that I gave Awesomenauts a thumbs up. I like a side-scrolling MOBA a bit more than the traditional 3-lane, either isometric view or third-person view of Smite. I just seem to have more fun and seem to be better attuned at it. You could argue because that genre is a little easier, and I wouldn't disagree with you. So I'm going to give it a thumbs up too. Jason, I think it's pretty clear where your thumb's pointed on this one. All right, let's slide over to the weekly bombs then and keep talking about Hyper Universe. So, as I watched the first look that I signed to say, hey, Troy, you want to take this one? Because originally Troy was going to do Awesomenauts. But then I had so much fun with Awesomenauts and had sunk so much time that I was already level 4 or 5 when I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do the first look. I'm playing it long enough that I feel comfortable doing this. And so when this one came around, I said, hey, do you want a beta key for this? And you can do the first look for this one. And Troy, yeah, sure, no problem. He sends it to me, and I prep it and render it with the watermarks. Or I don't do that for you. I do that for Jason. I didn't have to render anything for you. So I prep it, YouTube, put it up, make it private, and I do my screening of it to make sure all the intros, outros, all that good stuff is there. And as I'm watching this, which is before I had a chance to play Hyper Universe, as I'm watching this, about 10 minutes and 6 seconds in.
He knows the exact time stamp.
About.
Yeah, he does.
Roughly. You know, roughly.
He's not bitter or anything, but it's
10 minutes
and
6 or 7 seconds in. It kind of happens right in between the second mark there. I hear Troy say something that gets my A-bomb for the week. So Troy makes a comment on his first look that they're going to play a match, and that since it's not Magicman holding this match, it is not going to be against bots. He's going against other players, and calls out my PvP. Now, I can only assume that this is based on my Awesomenauts first look. And what I fail to see here, Troy, as you spent 10 minutes at the beginning of your first look going through menus, is that my first look jumped straight to the action, baby. Jumped straight to the action. And yeah, it was against bots in a game that you had to buy to do the first look when I did it, because it was before you could get in on the free-to-play. Had almost no people playing it, hence the free-to-play conversion. And the bot match popped in 30 seconds. I spent 5 minutes in there. Mopped the floor against the bots real quick. 5 minutes of a 30-plus minute first look.
Floor of the bots, you go.
But you fail to mention that the rest of that 30-minute first look is an actual PvP match, which I had to stop the recording, just like you did, and wait for a ridiculously long queue to get. And I won. I don't understand, Troy. I felt personally attacked. I felt like you left out my accomplishments and focused right on something that wasn't even... I felt hurt, Troy. I felt betrayed. Well, explain yourself, because I'm giving you an A-bomb.
What I focused on was your need to build yourself up to the confidence to step into the realm of PvPers. Because you jumped into it, you mopped the floor with them bots, buddy. Good for you. And you were like, "Oh, I'm good at the game."
I was jumping straight to the gameplay. Let me show you all of this. Then we'll come back and look at the menus.
And the people who knew what they were doing carried your sorry butt all the way to victory. And so now you want to give me an A-bomb? You go ahead and give me the A-bomb, mister. Let's jump into a bots game so I can show you the game without being distracted. Because I don't know if I'm going to get carried in the PvP game. I jumped
straight into the fray, straight into the action, show you the interface, then come back and spend a few minutes on the menus. And then I have an epic PvP match. Then I end up winning, and I even said in the first look, I didn't play like dog dick. I even said that in the first look, and then I was like, screw it, I'm leaving that in there. And then I left it in the recording. And then I turn on your first look, and I'm looking at 10 minutes of menus just to get slapped in the face at the end of it. Jason, I feel some type of way. I don't know if Troy's going to be back.
Next time, Troy, just bring up his golfing.
That damn sign. I hate you too, Jason.
Well, I would challenge him to a PvP match as to whether or not I ever come back, but I don't want to have to wait 30 minutes for him to finish a bots game before he decides to play me.
Oh, I was thinking the same thing when I typed the show notes. I was like, the next game that has PvP, it's going to be a dual first look. We'll each get to play one match so we can get the controls. We're not allowed to talk to each other about what we experienced in that match. So if you learn something through playing and I learn something, fine. And then we take it, we'll get, I think the next PvP-based game that we're doing a first look for should be a dual first look between Troy and I on opposing teams.
Troy, just lay out some seeds in front of him.
Bunch of dicks. Go ahead, Jason, with your bomb.
I'm going to give a bomb to Final Fantasy 15 because I've been playing the heck out of it for the past 2 weeks. Got me back into Final Fantasy. Loving it. Hadn't played a single-player one in so long. Although I'm kind of at the point where I'm not able to do any side quests. They got me on rails the whole time. I don't like that. And I wrecked my car yesterday. It's the worst thing ever.
The regalia.
And I lost Prompto, but whatever. The car...
You've been streaming it, huh?
Yeah, I've been streaming it the past couple nights. I'm going to take a little break from that tonight at least, but
nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Troy.
I'm going to give a bomb this week to Secret World Legends. I'm having fun. And at the end of the day, that's all I care about when I'm in a game. If I'm immersed and I'm having a good time, I want to keep playing. So the bomb to Secret World Legends, you guys have sucked me back in so far.
Yeah, and you were hoping that this would kind of take the reins for a little while, so good to see that. Jason, we spent a lot of time talking about Secret World last week. You weren't on the show. They've had some launch issues, obviously, downtime and maintenance and billing issues to the point that their support is now shut off for basically everything that isn't a billing issue, and an initial delay and everything. Bit of a rocky start. I wasn't surprised. I think a lot of Funcom followers weren't really surprised by some of this stuff. But I wanted to give you a few minutes to chime in on Secret World since you weren't here last week now that it's launched. And some people mentioned it, obviously, in the comments. So I feel it's appropriate. What are your thoughts?
Oh, those problems are just for you guys who are the special players. We got to test out the early access right away for the first 3 days. I've had no real technical problems going along. It crashes every time I quit, but no big deal. I'm quitting anyway. But yeah, I mean,
just a tip. Secret World has been doing that for years.
But it's following kind of a pattern that I see. Like when it just feels like I want to wait like 2 years when a game comes out, when an MMO comes out. I want to wait at least about 2 years to actually play it, because by then they've gotten past the minimal viable product for an MMO, and they've got all the good features in there and the additional little daily quests or whatever kind of cool stuff. Little bitty stuff that a more established MMO already has, but they don't put in a new game because it's just come out and they just want to get the basic thing out there. That's how I felt when I first played Star Trek Online, and I got back into it a little bit 2 years later. Even Final Fantasy XIV felt kind of that way when I got into it a few years after it launched. And I feel that way with Secret World Legends now as opposed to Secret World. It feels more like a full game as opposed to just kind of a thing that they put out there when it first launched and first few months when I played it and then just kind of got away from it. Now I feel like I'm going to stick around in it and explore all the different features and all the different stuff. I'm not really that into MMOs right now. I'm kind of taking a break, playing a lot more single-player games like Final Fantasy 15. But if I'm going to play an MMO now for the foreseeable future, that's probably going to be the one I get into.
And they've pretty much made it a single-player game if you really want it to be a single-player game. So that's a win-win for you. That's a win-win as opposed to Star Trek Online, which you mentioned, introducing the no-win scenario for you fans. Kobayashi Maru event coming up. From the viewers, Elusive X Treasure says, "Da-bomb to Atlas Reactor's summer sale. I got some shinies for a lot less. A-bomb to people who don't get team play but play team-based games." Guys, you can see what your teammates are doing. Don't dash out of my AoE heal. And for the love of pancakes, I love that phrase, by the way. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
Pancakes.
Why are you grabbing a heal at full health when I'm down to 30? Sigh, c'est la vie. So Elusive X Treasure feeling the pressure of not getting the heal there. Go ahead, Jason.
Every multiplayer online PvP game ever he just described.
T-Wolf says, "I just wanted to ask, because I was also in the closed beta for Secret World Legends, did you all find that you really did not need to spec into your secondary weapon? Like, in most cases, I was really fine with just going all in on my fist weapon. Decent damage and heals, I had no need for blood magic."
Troy, I'm going to let you chime in on this one. To be honest, I have not played since the actual launch.
I am 100% shotgun, and the hammer just sits on my back doing nothing.
So, same thing.
Yeah. See, I go through, if I spam too much one ability, I go through all my energy or whatever for it, and I have to switch to the other one. So I have needed both a little bit.
Just use a basic attack.
Well, those are weak. I want real damage.
Go ahead, Troy.
Oh, where are we at? Pi R round this week. I'm giving a dub bomb to the Allies team on my mom.com.
mom.com?
What the heck? And my.com for Cloud Pirates. It caught my attention a while ago, but I kind of forgot about it. Shut up, Mike! And it only just started playing this week. It is only the second wargaming-style vehicular combat game to pull me in for more than 2 minutes, the first of which was Star Conflict over on mydad.com.
By our round, I agree with you. Cloud Pirates is a lot of fun. mymom.com. Oh, that's got to be a real site. I mean, it has to be, right?
I don't know if I'd look. It might be not.
Yeah, you might want to wait on that.
I've looked up gimp suits on this show. Hey, there we go. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a redirect to MILF Roulette. Which is apparently chat roulette for MILFs. And I actually have my camera on, so that was really bad for like 8 seconds.
How do we always talk about porn when I'm on this show?
Right. Garothian says, I give a dub bomb to Secret World Legends. It's what The Matrix Online back in 2000 should have done. Good point. I'm really liking the game, and the story is sick. Stick with it. You'll just continue to love the story as you go. Go ahead, Jason.
Except for this person.
Right.
Velanir Oriona says, says, A-bomb to Secret World Legends. All this talk of updated this and that, I find the combat in particular still lacking in weight.
Something I brought up too. Yeah,
and anything but an action feel. Yeah, I can kind of agree with that too. It still feels kind of floaty. So, but yeah, it's better, I guess. Actually, it's the same reticle combat available currently as a switch on in the original. More so it was in the game back in alpha and then got scrapped for a time. The characters look like they just swing at enemies or in their general direction, and damage numbers just magically appear over their heads. It is basically a target lock via mouse pointer mode, action in name only. Also, they positioned the updated game as an MO, no longer an MMO, which comes with a downgrade in scale. I won't say it's a cash grab, just a desperate attempt to revitalize a stagnating game. Which is all, isn't that every free-to-play conversion?
Yeah, really.
Which is alright, I only take issue with how they've not really, redone the combat. Can't believe it's on the same engine as Age of Conan, same dev company, probably some of the same people working on both. What a stark contrast.
Yeah, and I mentioned on last week's show that was still my primary gripe with combat, is it lacks impact. I couldn't agree with you more. Go ahead, Troy.
Razil Nightfall. A-bomb to Mike for willingly grinding fates, but being pissy about playing a game that lets you play the quest as many times as you want.
Razil, I'm not sure what game you're referencing as far as the quest as many times, but I mean, you're...
Maybe Secret World Legends from last week.
I don't think I bitched about being able to do the quest. I think I bitched about having to play the entire game again. If that's what you're talking about, then yeah, I'm going to bitch about having to play an entire game again. If you're talking about something else I mentioned, just call it to my attention in the comments there, and I promise you I won't disagree at that point. Tommy Berry and Dub Bomby A-Bomb for the Steam sale. Taking it to my wallet. Getting me to buy all those great games, which I don't have time to play anyway. Also, great show, guys, as always. We'll probably check out Secret World. Tommy, thank you for the comment, and excuse me for editing your comment a little bit for the sake of a more family-friendly audience while not being entirely family-friendly.
Oh, you mean the family-friendly show where you look up porn live on the air. Okay, gotcha.
Go ahead, Jason. Finish up the bombs.
Jack Bandit says, F my life. Finally, I was going to start playing Secret World Legends this morning, and the maintenance got extended. It won't be up before I head to work now. Well, I bet it's up now.
Question of the week last week. A few weeks ago, we asked you to change up the Trinity system in MMOs. This week, we wanted to know how you would make a MOBA different to stand out against the competition. Pyar Round said for the question of the week, I'll try not to write a master's thesis this time, but we'll see what happens. How would I make a MOBA different? Well, I think you have to take account of what's been done already. The two biggest changes that have hit the MOBA scene since it started getting big have been character perspective, Smite, and in-match progression, Heroes of the Storm. I don't know if I'd give that credit to Heroes of the Storm, but I know what you're saying. Smaller changes to the formula include shifts in meta progression and map variety. I think I want to go really big and really wacky, so just think about this for a second. A roguelite MOBA. The map for each match is procedurally generated, character upgrades are semi-random, and there's a persistent meta progression outside of the matches. I think either top-down or third-person perspective would be best here, but I don't really favor one over the other. I think that's an interesting take on a MOBA experience, Troy, if maybe not entirely practical for somebody that wants to enter the esports scene. I think you can't, when you want to enter the esports, it's got to be as focused on player skill as you can, right? They don't like random in that.
They don't like Joe Blow playing the game. They want to see the guy who can melt your face in 3 seconds before you realize what happened playing the game.
Right. I like the idea, though, as far as a general attempt. Go ahead, Jason.
Carothian says, now for the question of the week. Well, I would make a MOBA with cars, like Twisted Metal type of cars. If you ever play Twisted Metal, you know the craziness of it. I'd make it where you have to defend 3 spots on the map, and each spot have a building with people in it throwing bombs and stuff at your vehicles. If you did not claim the spot, and the first team to 500 points wins, or something like that. There's so much you could do with that, it would be amazing. Could even do a 3-lane thing with the cars where you have both teams trying to take the other's base over, and the base has turrets around it defending it. That kind of sounds like the regular MOBA, but okay. I mean, it would be so epic to see cars with lasers, missiles, razor blade discs, flamethrowers, acid guns, poison bombs, and etc. You can even make it third person like Smite, but would be super better with cars, trucks, semis, tanks, buggies, ice cream trucks, and etc. There'd be so many things you could do to make a sick MOBA with these, and boy, do I have a lot more ideas for this MOBA. So Grothin just wants Twisted Metal the MOBA.
Which is interesting. Have you checked out Heavy Metal Machines? I know it's not quite to the extent of some of the things you're talking about, but a step in that direction, definitely. A MOBA-esque game with vehicular combat. Go ahead, Troy.
Tommy Barry, question of the week. Can we just stop making MOBAs, please? Jesus.
And finally, Hydrex Sky Shadow, question of the week. You'll hate me for this. Boy, do I have a few ideas. 1, drop the leveling part. That way, one team can't overpower the other just because of level superiority. 2, make the map dynamic, interactive. Make events that change the map structures. Buildings falling off of a lane because they place dynamite. More terrain, underground mountains, buildings, not just the same boring flat map. 3, make objectives that are interesting and can have an impact on the entire game. Example, defeat one camp can give you gunpowder, another can give you fuse. After that, you're able to take them back, craft bombs that can influence the overall map, give players a reason to think. Any dumb shit can press QWER and kill some other random player. Except me, apparently. 4, give the hero more than 4 skills. That's why I play bots. Give the hero more than 4 skills and let the player customize the skill set and the abilities to their liking. For example, Q ability can be stun, silence, snare, blind, burn, or any other, and the burn can be a one-line strike, AoE circle, AoE cone. I like that idea. 5, lower the HP and increase the cooldown so that the skills have impact. Wasted skills means problems for some time. And 6, hero damage so the hero can be permanently affected until they do something about the problem. Weapon loss, armor, or morbidly, body parts. There's an interesting take, Troy. You get your arm lopped off in League of Legends. You ain't getting it back until you go and do X thing to get a new arm. I don't know. Buy a new arm from the store.
Buy a new arm.
Question
taking items to the next level.
So if I thought I had a question of the week in here, but I'm going to go with Jason's anyway. Even if I think he deleted mine is what happened.
No, there was nothing there, I swear.
There wasn't?
Typed it in.
No. I had one. All right, we'll save mine for next week because I think Jason's fits more in line with one of the news topics we talked about this week anyway. How would you say free-to-play in general is doing right now? Are you more on Bobby Bernstein's side of the camp where it shouldn't even be considered? Are you somewhere in the middle like I think most of us are? Or are you, it's the be-all end-all still like it was 4 years ago? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget your weekly bombs. D-bomb for something good, A-bomb for something bad, or your questions to the viewers. Until next week, Troy, where can everybody find you?
You can find hot PvP action at twitch.tv/Noobfridge. No bots.
Jason.
You can find me at Winter Informal, probably doing hot PvE action for the most part.
I'm Mike Byrne, a.k.a. Magicman. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Magicman1. Of course, while you're there, follow at MMOBomb.com. And make sure that you follow me at mymom.com, which is where I'm going to be signing up for a new... No? I don't work there?
No.
I don't work there? All right, well, until next week, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers.